19 Black celebrities who kept their lovers a secret until death. What if the greatest love stories in Black entertainment history were the ones the public was never supposed to discover, behind the dazzling stages, million-selling records, and carefully protected Hollywood images? Some legendary stars were living complicated romances that could have threatened careers, marriages, and reputations. From relationships hidden because of racial prejudice to private bonds revealed only years later, these stories show a side of fame rarely seen under the spotlight. But how much of their private lives did these legends sacrifice just to survive in the entertainment industry? Stay with us, because some revelations may completely change how you see these icons. Subscribe to Golden Black Legends and tell us in the comments which legendary star do you think had the most surprising secret love story. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. could command a stage with a song, a joke, or a single, effortless dance step, yet one chapter of his private life exposed just how unforgiving American entertainment could be. In 1957, Davis became romantically involved with actress Kim Novak, one of Hollywood's biggest white stars. Their relationship unfolded at a time when interracial romance remained deeply controversial and anti-miscegenation laws were still in force in many states. Novak later confirmed that their connection was genuine, describing Davis as intelligent, funny, and someone she cared about. But Hollywood executives saw danger rather than romance. Harry Cohn, the powerful head of Columbia Pictures, was fiercely protective of Novak's image, and accounts from Davis's biographers describe enormous pressure being placed on him to end the relationship. Stories of organized crime intimidation have circulated for decades, although the most dramatic versions cannot be independently proven and should not be presented as unquestioned fact. The relationship ended under that extraordinary pressure. Soon afterward, Davis married black dancer Lorraine White in January 1958. Biographical accounts have characterized that brief marriage as an arrangement connected to the controversies surrounding Novak. Davis and White divorced later that same year. What makes this story haunting is not simply that two celebrities dated in secret. It reveals the racial boundaries Hollywood still enforced behind its glamorous facade. Davis went on to marry Swedish actress May-Britt in 1960, openly challenging those boundaries when interracial marriage remained illegal in numerous American states. Their marriage lasted 8 years and produced daughter Tracy, while they also adopted 2 sons. Sammy Davis Jr. died in 1990 at 64. But his story with Kim Novak remains a powerful reminder of an era when even a superstar could discover that fame offered little protection against prejudice. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston possessed one of the most recognizable voices in modern music, but behind the extraordinary success was a relationship she kept far from public view. Long before worldwide fame transformed her life, Houston formed an exceptionally close bond with Robin Crawford. They met as teenagers in New Jersey in 1980, years before Houston became an international superstar. For decades, the public largely knew Crawford as Houston's friend, assistant, and creative director. That understanding changed dramatically in 2019 when Crawford published her memoir, A Song for You, My Life, with Whitney Houston. In it, she described their early relationship as both emotional and physical. According to Crawford, Houston eventually ended the physical side of their relationship as her recording career began accelerating, fearing the consequences they could face. That context matters. Houston was entering the music industry during the 1980s, when openly discussing a same-sex relationship could carry enormous professional and personal consequences, particularly for a young black female artist being marketed to mainstream America. Crawford also recalled pressure surrounding how their closeness was perceived. Their bond nevertheless continued for years. Crawford became part of Houston's professional world and remained one of the people closest to her during her rise. Houston later married Bobby Brown in 1992, while Crawford eventually left Houston's professional circle. Houston died on February 11, 2012, at only 48. She never publicly defined herself through the labels later attached to her by outsiders, an important distinction when telling her story accurately. What can be documented comes primarily from Crawford's first-hand account before the fame, marriage controversies, and relentless scrutiny. The two women shared a relationship Crawford remembered as deeply loving. It adds a profoundly human dimension to Whitney Houston's complicated life without turning speculation into fact. Ray Charles. Ray Charles built an extraordinary musical legacy while living a private life that was considerably more complicated than the polished image audiences saw on stage. One of his most consequential relationships was with Margie Hendrix, the powerhouse singer who became a central voice in the Raelettes. Their connection developed while Charles was married to Della Beatrice Howard Robinson, making the relationship an affair that carried serious emotional consequences. Hendrix joined Charles' female backing group in the late 1950s, and her explosive gospel-rooted delivery became an essential counterweight to his voice. Their chemistry was especially memorable on recordings such as "Nighttime is the Right Time." Away from the microphones, however, their professional partnership developed into a romantic relationship. The affair was not merely Hollywood gossip. Charles and Hendrix had a son, Charles Wayne Hendrix, born in 1959. Charles acknowledged fathering 12 children with 10 women over his lifetime, illustrating just how complicated his relationships became while his career expanded internationally. For Hendrix, separating the personal from the professional proved difficult. Her relationship with Charles deteriorated, and she eventually left the Raelettes in the 1960s. Accounts of her later years describe struggles that contrasted painfully with the commanding performer audiences remembered. Charles remained married to Della for more than 2 decades before their 1977 divorce. He never lived according to the conventional romantic image that his tenderest recordings might suggest. Ray Charles died in 2004 at 73, leaving behind an immense catalog and an equally complicated personal history. His relationship with Margie Hendrix matters because it was more than a whispered affair. Their musical partnership helped create unforgettable performances, while their son permanently connected two people whose lives had become intertwined behind the brilliance of the stage. Diana Ross. Diana Ross and Berry Gordy were two architects of the Motown phenomenon, but their connection extended well beyond records, rehearsals, and business decisions. Ross had risen from Detroit's Brewster Douglas housing projects to become the unmistakable centerpiece of the Supremes, while Gordy was building Motown into one of the most influential black-owned entertainment enterprises in American history. Somewhere inside that extraordinary rise, their professional relationship became romantic. Unlike many sensationalized Hollywood stories, their involvement is not merely an anonymous rumor. Both became permanently connected through their daughter, Rhonda Suzanne Silberstein, born in August 1971. At the time, Ross was married to music executive Robert Ellis Silberstein, whom she had married earlier that year. Rhonda grew up believing Silberstein was her biological father. Ross later explained publicly that Berry Gordy was actually Rhonda's biological father, although Silberstein remained the father who raised her. Rhonda eventually developed a relationship with Gordy as well. The story is more complicated than portraying anyone simply as a secret lover. Ross and Gordy were navigating romance inside an unusually powerful professional partnership. Gordy had played a decisive role in developing the Supremes, while Ross was becoming one of Motown's defining stars. Their careers therefore gave them reasons to protect boundaries between public image and private reality. Ross subsequently built an enormous solo career, while Gordy continued shaping Motown's legacy. Their romantic relationship ended, but their connection through Rhonda never disappeared. Now in her 80s, Diana Ross remains an enduring symbol of elegance and black musical achievement. Her history with Gordy reveals something the Motown publicity machine could rarely capture behind the coordinated gowns, #1 records, and carefully managed appearances were real people making deeply personal choices whose consequences lasted long after the camera stopped. Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor turned his deepest wounds into comedy, but away from the stage, his relationships could be as turbulent as the stories he told audiences. One of the best documented chapters involved actress Pam Grier. The two became romantically involved in the 1970s, when Grier was already a major screen presence and Pryor was becoming one of America's most groundbreaking comedians. Their relationship was passionate but increasingly strained by Pryor's drug use. Grier later wrote candidly about their time together in her memoir, describing how cocaine addiction affected his behavior and their intimacy. In one startling episode, she recalled receiving a warning from a doctor about cocaine exposure associated with their sexual relationship. Because this account comes directly from Grier, it can be discussed as her recollection rather than presented as anonymous Hollywood gossip. Ultimately, affection was not enough to overcome Pryor's instability. Grier has described wanting him to stop using drugs while realizing she could not force him to change. Their romance eventually ended, becoming one chapter in an extraordinarily complicated personal history. Pryor married 7 times to 5 women. 2 women, Jennifer Lee and Flynn Belaine, each married him twice. His struggles became painfully public in 1980 when he suffered life-threatening burns during an incident involving freebasing cocaine. Yet his private turmoil never erased his artistic impact. Pryor transformed addiction, relationships, racism, vulnerability, and failure into comedy of startling honesty. He died in 2005 at 65. His relationship with Grier remains compelling, not because of invented secret letters or cinematic confrontations, but because Grier herself documented how love collided with addiction behind the public image of a man who could make millions laugh while privately struggling to control his own life. Diane Carroll. Diane Carroll embodied sophistication on screen, yet one of the most complicated relationships of her life unfolded largely beyond public view. Her romance with Sidney Poitier began after they met while working on Porgy and Bess in the late 1950s. The attraction created an immediate problem. Both stars were married when their relationship developed. Carroll later addressed the affair candidly in her memoir, removing it from the realm of Hollywood rumor. She was married to Montague, while Poitier was married to Juanita Hardy. According to Carroll's account, Poitier told her he would leave his wife, and Carroll eventually ended her own marriage. But the future she expected with him did not materialize as simply as she had hoped. Their relationship continued for years, filled with affection but also uncertainty. Carroll recalled painful episodes in which promises about their future collided with Poitier's hesitation. For 2 black performers achieving extraordinary visibility during an era of intense racial discrimination, public image carried enormous weight, adding another layer to an already difficult situation. Eventually, Carroll recognized that the relationship was not giving her the stability she wanted. Their romance ended, but both continued building historic careers. Poitier became the first black performer to win the Academy Award for Best Actor, while Carroll broke television barriers as the star of Julia, becoming the first black woman to lead a network television series in a non-stereotypical role. Carroll died in 2019 at 84. Her relationship with Poitier remains one of classic Hollywood's most fascinating documented affairs, precisely because neither anonymous insiders nor fabricated letters are needed to make it compelling. Behind 2 groundbreaking careers were 2 imperfect people navigating ambition, marriage, desire, and consequences, and Carroll eventually chose to tell that complicated truth herself. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye recorded some of popular music's most sensual songs, but the relationship that transformed his private world began under circumstances far more complicated than any romantic lyric. In 1973, while still married to Anna Gordy Gaye, Marvin met Janice Hunter. He was 34. She was 17. That age difference is essential to the story and should not be softened when recounting their relationship today. Their attraction developed while Marvin's marriage to Anna was deteriorating. Janice became deeply intertwined with both his personal life and creative world, and her presence has long been associated with the intensely romantic period surrounding Let's Get It On. Marvin and Janice eventually had two children together, Nona, born in 1974, and Frankie, born in 1975. Marvin's divorce from Anna was finalized in 1977, and he married Janice that same year. What began amid secrecy and marital complications was now official, but marriage did not bring lasting peace. Janice later described a relationship marked by powerful attraction, alongside jealousy, infidelity, drug use, and increasingly destructive behavior. The marriage deteriorated quickly. They separated and ultimately divorced in 1981. Janice later spoke publicly about their years together, providing a first-hand perspective on a man whose romantic music could sound effortless even when his private relationships were anything but. Marvin's final years were dominated by cocaine dependence, paranoia, financial difficulties, and conflict within his family. On April 1, 1984, one day before his 45th birthday, his father fatally shot him during an argument at the family home. He was 44. The relationship with Janice needs no invented dialogue to be dramatic. It was documented, consequential, and deeply complicated, a romance that produced two children and inspired memories of extraordinary passion, yet unfolded amid choices that left lasting emotional scars. Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt captivated audiences with a voice unlike anyone else's, but her private life unfolded in an America where interracial relationships could still provoke fierce opposition. Among the relationships associated with her early Hollywood years, one of the most significant was with Arthur Lowe Jr., a member of the powerful family connected to the Lowe's Theatre and MGM Empire. By the 1950s, Kitt was already becoming an international sensation. Her recordings, including Sexy Bomb and The Unforgettable Santa Baby, made her famous, while film and stage appearances expanded her celebrity. Yet success offered little protection from racial prejudice. Kitt and Lowe became romantically involved and reportedly lived together. But the possibility of marriage encountered resistance connected to race and family expectations. For Kitt, this was painfully familiar territory. Born into poverty in South Carolina in 1927, she endured rejection and discrimination from childhood before transforming herself into one of entertainment's most distinctive performers. A relationship that might have been ordinary for another actress therefore became another reminder that fame could not erase society's racial boundaries. The romance ultimately did not lead to marriage. Kitt later married real estate developer John William McDonald in 1960, and their daughter, Kitt Shapiro, was born the following year. The marriage ended in divorce in 1965. Kitt's career would survive even greater storms. Her outspoken criticism of the Vietnam War at a 1968 White House luncheon contributed to years of professional difficulty in the United States, yet she eventually returned triumphantly to Broadway television and recording. Eartha Kitt died in 2008 at 81. Her relationship with Lowe deserves attention not because of invented deathbed scenes, but because it reflects a documented reality of her era. Even extraordinary fame could not guarantee a black woman the freedom to love without racial prejudice. Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier represented dignity and possibility to millions, but behind his groundbreaking public image was a complicated relationship he and Diahann Carroll would later acknowledge. They met while working on Porgy and Bess in the late 1950s. Their attraction developed into a long affair, even though both were married when the relationship began. At the time, Poitier was married to Juanita Hardy, with whom he had 4 daughters. Carroll was married to Monte Kay. Carroll later described the relationship candidly in her memoir, recalling that Poitier told her he intended to leave his marriage. She eventually divorced Kay, expecting that she and Poitier might build a life together. Reality proved far more painful. Their relationship continued for years, but Carroll wrote about broken expectations and Poitier's reluctance to make the commitment she wanted. What makes the story particularly striking is the contrast between their private uncertainty and their historic professional achievements. In 1964, Poitier became the first black winner of the Academy Award for Best Actor for Lilies of the Field. Carroll would later make television history with Julia, which premiered in 1968 and placed a black professional woman at the center of a network series. Both were carrying enormous expectations as black stars during the civil rights era, when every public decision could receive extraordinary scrutiny. Their romance eventually ended. Poitier divorced Hardy in 1965 and later married actress Joanna Shimkus in 1976, remaining with her for the rest of his life. Poitier died in 2022 at 94. His history with Carroll does not diminish his cultural achievements, but it complicates the immaculate image Hollywood often presented. Behind a barrier-breaking career was a man capable of love, indecision, mistakes, and consequences. Parts of his life that become more compelling when told without turning documented history into sensational fiction. Little Richard. Little Richard shattered musical conventions with his voice appearance and explosive performances, yet his private life was marked by a complicated struggle between sexuality, religion, relationships, and the expectations of his era. One important woman in that history was Audrey Robinson, the performer known professionally as Lee Angel, whom Richard dated during the formative years of his career. Angel later spoke publicly about their relationship and appeared in accounts of Richard's life. Their connection was genuine, but reducing Richard's story to a conventional secret romance would miss what made his personal journey so complex. Across different periods, Richard gave changing descriptions of his sexuality and sexual behavior. At times, he spoke openly about attraction to men. At others, particularly during periods of intense religious commitment, he rejected aspects of his earlier life. That conflict followed him for decades. Richard married Ernestine Harvin in 1959. Their marriage ended in divorce in 1964, and Harvin later remembered him differently from some of the more sensational portrayals that emerged around his private life. Meanwhile, the music was rewriting history. Tutti Frutti, released in 1955, followed by records such as Long Tall, Sally, Rip It Up, and Good Golly. Miss Molly helped establish the vocabulary of rock and roll. His flamboyant presentation also challenged traditional expectations of black masculinity long before mainstream culture had comfortable language for such expression. Richard repeatedly moved between secular entertainment and evangelical Christianity, creating an extraordinary tension between the performer audiences celebrated and the life he believed faith demanded. Little Richard died in 2020 at 87. His story should not be simplified by assigning him a modern label he did not consistently use. What is documented is more fascinating. He spent much of his life negotiating desire, faith, fame, and identity while helping create a musical revolution that gave later generations greater freedom to express themselves. Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin guarded her private world fiercely. Behind the commanding voice that earned her the title Queen of Soul, one of the important relationships in her adult life was with Ken Cunningham, her road manager. Their partnership developed after the collapse of Franklin's turbulent first marriage and became a significant chapter in a personal life she rarely allowed the public to fully examine. Franklin had married Ted White in 1961 when she was still a teenager. White also became her manager, but their marriage was troubled and ended in divorce in 1969. Franklin subsequently became involved with Cunningham. Unlike the extravagant fictional romances sometimes attached to deceased stars, their relationship has a concrete historical connection. They had a son together. Kickoff Cunningham was born in March 1970. His first name was constructed from his parents' initials, Ken E. Cunningham and Aretha Louise Franklin. Franklin never married Cunningham, and she generally maintained tight control over what outsiders knew about the relationship. This period coincided with an astonishing creative peak. Franklin had already transformed popular music with recordings including Respect Chain of Fools, Think and You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. By balancing motherhood, touring, recording, and enormous public expectations, she was living a far more complicated existence than her regal stage image suggested. Franklin later married actor Glyn Turman in 1978. They separated several years afterward and divorced in 1984. She did not marry again. When Aretha Franklin died in 2018 at 76, she left 4 sons and a musical legacy almost impossible to measure. Her relationship with Cunningham is best told without manufactured scandal. It demonstrates something subtler. One of the most famous women in America managed to keep meaningful parts of her romantic and family life remarkably private even while the world listened to her sing about love, desire, heartbreak, and respect. Miles Davis. Miles Davis revolutionized jazz repeatedly, but his romantic life was almost as complicated as his music. Behind the cool public image stood relationships marked by attraction, jealousy, addiction, and by his own later admissions behavior that caused serious harm. Among the women most closely connected to his story were Frances Taylor Davis and Cicely Tyson, both of whom occupied important but very different chapters of his life. Davis married dancer Frances Taylor in 1959. She appeared on the famous cover of his 1961 album Someday My Prince Will Come, but their marriage became deeply troubled. Davis later acknowledged physically abusing her behavior that must not be romanticized. Taylor eventually left, and their divorce was finalized in 1968. Years later, actress Cicely Tyson became one of the most significant figures in Davis's life. They had initially been involved during the 1960s and reconnected around the end of the 1970s, when Davis was struggling with cocaine addiction and had largely withdrawn from performing. Tyson later described encouraging him toward better health and greater stability. They married in 1981. Their union attracted enormous attention because both were Black cultural icons, yet life behind the glamorous photographs remained difficult. Davis returned to recording and touring, releasing The Man with the Horn that year and rebuilding a career that had nearly disappeared. The marriage, however, deteriorated and they divorced in 1989. Miles Davis died in 1991 at 65. His private history is not a simple tale of forbidden romance. It is a more uncomfortable and revealing story about extraordinary creativity existing alongside addiction, possessiveness, and damaging behavior. That complexity matters. Davis changed jazz forever, but acknowledging his genius does not require disguising the painful realities experienced by people closest to him. Lena Horne. Lena Horne became one of the most elegant figures of Hollywood's golden age, but glamour could not protect her from the racial restrictions surrounding Black performers. Her romantic history also crossed boundaries that American society fiercely policed. Among the prominent men linked to her was actor and filmmaker Orson Welles, though accounts of their connection should be presented carefully rather than embellished into an undocumented secret epic. Horne entered Hollywood after establishing herself as a nightclub performer and singer. MGM signed her during the 1940s, making her one of the rare Black stars under contract at a major studio. Yet the studio frequently placed her musical appearances in sequences that could be removed when films played in segregated Southern markets. Her personal life challenged convention as well. Horne married Louis Jordan Jones in 1937, and they had 2 children before divorcing in 1944. Later, she became involved with Lenny Hayton, a white Jewish composer-arranger and MGM music director. Their relationship faced an obvious obstacle. Interracial marriage remained deeply controversial and legally prohibited in parts of the United States. Horne and Hayton married privately in Paris in 1947. They initially kept the marriage quiet, eventually making it public several years later. Horne subsequently spoke candidly about the complicated motivations and emotions surrounding their union, which lasted until Hayton's death in 1971. That marriage provides a stronger, documented story than sensational rumors surrounding some of Horne's famous acquaintances. Horne continued performing while becoming increasingly outspoken about civil rights, refusing to accept the humiliating limitations Hollywood once imposed upon her. She died in 2010 at 92. Her story reveals the price Black celebrities could pay simply for crossing racial boundaries. For Lena Horne, keeping love private was not merely about protecting celebrity mystique. It unfolded within an America where an interracial marriage could carry genuine social and professional consequences. James Brown. James Brown called himself the hardest working man in show business, and few performers could challenge that description. Yet behind the relentless touring and revolutionary music was an intensely complicated personal life involving several marriages, numerous allegations of infidelity, and documented violence against women. Any account of Brown's relationships therefore needs to separate verified history from the mythology that surrounded him. Brown married 4 times. His third marriage to Adrienne Louise Rodriguez became particularly turbulent. They married in 1984. But police and court records from subsequent years reflected repeated domestic disputes. Rodriguez accused Brown of assault and authorities were called during multiple incidents. She died in 1996 while they were still married. Later, Brown developed a relationship with singer Tommy Ray Heine. The pair held a marriage ceremony in 2001, but the legal status of that marriage became the subject of years of litigation because Heine had previously married another man. After Brown's death, disputes over whether she qualified as his surviving spouse became entangled with battles over his estate. That legal drama was only one part of a private history far removed from his triumphant stage persona. Brown also fathered numerous children, although the exact number has been disputed and additional paternity claims appeared over the years. Professionally, his influence was monumental. Records such as Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, I Got You, I Feel Good, and Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud helped reshape soul funk, hip-hop, and modern popular music. James Brown died in 2006 at 73. His relationships should not be turned into romantic legend. The more compelling truth is the contradiction: a performer who gave audiences astonishing energy and black pride while leaving behind a personal history containing serious allegations, fractured relationships, and legal battles that continued long after his final performance. Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith sang about desire with a fearlessness that was extraordinary for the 1920s. Known as the Empress of the Blues, she became one of the highest-paid black entertainers of her era, while her private life challenged conventional expectations surrounding marriage, sexuality, and how a famous woman was supposed to behave. Smith married Jack G., a Philadelphia security guard, in 1923. Their relationship was volatile, with infidelity on both sides contributing to repeated conflict. Smith also had relationships with women, a part of her life discussed by biographers and people within the blues world. That history makes her relevant to stories about relationships black performers could not openly present to mainstream America. One point, however, requires caution. Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey should not automatically be described as confirmed lovers. Rainey was an important early influence who helped Smith professionally, and both women moved through blues communities where same-sex desire was expressed more openly than in mainstream society. But claims of a definite sexual affair between them are not supported strongly enough to be stated as established fact. Smith's own music provides fascinating context. Blues performers of her generation could sing about subjects mainstream culture tried to suppress, and Smith's recordings addressed independence, sexual freedom, betrayal, poverty, and heartbreak with remarkable directness. Her marriage to G eventually collapsed, although they remained legally married. Later, Richard Morgan became an important companion during the final period of her life. On September 26, 1937, Smith was critically injured in an automobile accident in Mississippi and died at 43. Contrary to a famous story repeated for decades, credible historical research does not support the claim that she died because a whites-only hospital refused to treat her. Bessie Smith's real life is already powerful enough. There is no need to invent a secret affair. Her documented relationships and uncompromising music reveal a black woman living with unusual independence in an era determined to restrict it. Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones spent more than 7 decades shaping American music, but his private life was nearly as eventful as his extraordinary career. The producer behind Thriller worked with everyone from Frank Sinatra to Michael Jackson, while navigating 3 marriages and relationships that frequently attracted public fascination. One particularly notable chapter involved German actress Nastassja Kinski. Jones and Kinski began a relationship in the early 1990s despite an age difference of more than 30 years. Unlike some supposed secret affairs attached to famous musicians, their relationship is well documented. They welcomed daughter Kenya, Julia Mayambi Sarah Jones, in 1993. Kenya later became a successful model, permanently connecting 2 entertainment families even after her parents separated. By then, Jones already had a remarkably complicated family history. He married Jerry Caldwell in 1957, Swedish actress Ulla Andersson in 1967, and actress Peggy Lipton in 1974. His marriage to Lipton produced daughters Kidada and Rashida Jones. Across different relationships, Quincy became the father of 7 children. His romantic history also occasionally generated spectacular headlines. Jones spoke with unusual openness in later interviews about famous women he had dated, although some of his most sensational recollections should be treated as personal claims rather than independently established facts. What cannot be disputed is his professional achievement. Jones accumulated 28 Grammy Awards from 80 nominations during his lifetime and produced Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. He also helped organize the historic 1985 recording of We Are the World. Quincy Jones died in 2024 at 91. His romantic history was never a simple, hidden love story. Instead, it reflected a man whose personal world was expansive, unconventional, and intertwined with entertainment history. Behind the awards and iconic recordings stood a complicated father and partner whose relationships stretched across decades, continents, and some of the most famous circles in show business. Nina Simone. Nina Simone could turn anguish into breathtaking music, but some of the deepest pain in her life existed away from the audience. Her marriage to Andrew Stroud, a former New York police detective who became her manager, developed into one of the darkest chapters of her personal history. Simone herself later described physical violence and controlling behavior within the relationship. Simone married Stroud in 1961 and their daughter Lisa was born the following year. Stroud soon assumed a major role in managing Simone's career. Professionally, the partnership coincided with an extraordinary period in which she recorded relentlessly and became an increasingly powerful voice in the civil rights movement. Privately, however, Simone described a frighteningly different reality. In her autobiography, she recounted Stroud beating her and exercising severe control over both her personal and professional life. These were not merely rumors created after her death. Simone placed disturbing details of the marriage into her own account. Meanwhile, songs including Mississippi, Goddamn 4 Women, and To Be Young, Gifted, and Black established her as an artist willing to confront racism with extraordinary force. That public fearlessness created a painful contrast with what she said she endured at home. The marriage ended in the early 1970s. Simone subsequently left the United States and spent portions of her later life in Liberia, Switzerland, France, and other countries. Her relationships, finances, mental well-being, and career remained complicated, but her musical influence only expanded with time. Nina Simone died in France in 2003 at 70. Her story should not be packaged as a glamorous secret affair. It is more powerful and more responsible to tell what the evidence supports. Behind one of the 20th century's most fearless musical voices was a woman who described experiencing serious domestic abuse while simultaneously creating art that gave strength to millions. Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy built Motown into a cultural powerhouse, but one of his most consequential relationships developed with the woman who became the label's brightest female star, Diana Ross. Their romance connected business ambition, family, and fame in ways that would remain significant long after their intimate relationship ended. Gordy recognized enormous potential in the Supremes, eventually positioning Ross as the group's lead singer as they became a hit-making phenomenon. During the 1960s, Gordy and Ross developed a romantic relationship because he was simultaneously her label chief and one of the most influential figures in her professional development. Their personal connection existed inside an unusually complicated power dynamic. The lasting evidence of that relationship is their daughter, Rhonda Suzanne Silberstein, born in 1971. Ross had married music executive Robert Ellis Silberstein earlier that year. Silberstein raised Rhonda as his daughter, while Berry Gordy was her biological father. Rhonda later learned the truth and developed a relationship with Gordy. Their romance did not prevent either person from moving forward separately. Ross became one of the world's most successful solo entertainers, while Gordy continued expanding Motown across music, television, and film. His personal life was equally extensive. Gordy fathered 8 children and had several significant relationships and marriages. Professionally, his achievement was historic. Founded in Detroit in 1959, Motown produced generations of stars, including the Supremes, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, and the Jackson 5, helping black music reach unprecedented mainstream audiences. Now, 96, Gordy has lived long enough to see Motown become an American institution. His history with Diana Ross needs no fictional conversations or invented secret letters. The documented reality is compelling enough. 2 extraordinarily ambitious people fell in love while building musical history, had a daughter together, and then carried that permanent connection into separate lives and legendary careers. Billy Preston. Billy Preston was called the 5th Beatle because of his remarkable work with the Beatles, but behind his joyful stage presence was a deeply painful private struggle. Preston was gay, yet he lived during an era when being openly homosexual could carry severe consequences for a black gospel-raised musician whose career crossed religious soul, rock, and mainstream audiences. Born in Houston and raised in Los Angeles, Preston displayed astonishing talent from childhood. He performed with gospel legends before becoming a sought-after keyboardist and later contributed prominently to the Beatles' final years. His playing can be heard on classics including Get Back, which was officially credited to the Beatles with Billy Preston, a rare distinction for an outside musician. Away from the spotlight, Preston struggled to reconcile his sexuality with his deeply religious upbringing. Accounts from people close to him, including his longtime manager Joyce Moore, have described how difficult it was for him to live openly. His personal history also included childhood sexual abuse, something Preston discussed later in life, adding another painful dimension that should never be sensationalized or confused with his sexual orientation. There is no solid basis for the transcript's dramatic story about a mysterious, renowned female singer abandoning Preston on New Year's Eve in 1978. That detail should be removed rather than transformed into fake history. What is documented is more meaningful. Preston spent much of his career keeping important aspects of his intimate life private while performing alongside the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Ray Charles, and other giants. He also achieved solo success with #1 hits, including Will It Go Round in Circles and Nothing from Nothing. Billy Preston died in 2006 at 59 after years of serious health problems. His story fits the theme of hidden personal lives, but only when told accurately, not through an invented secret lover, but through the genuine conflict between identity, faith, privacy, and fame. Behind every legendary voice, unforgettable performance, and glamorous public image was a private life the world rarely understood. From Sammy Davis Jr. and Whitney Houston to Marvin Gaye, Nina Simone, and Little Richard. These stories remind us that fame could never shield anyone from heartbreak, prejudice, complicated relationships, or impossible choices. Some protected their love from an unforgiving society, while others struggled with relationships that brought lasting consequences. But which story surprised you the most, and do you believe celebrities have the right to take their deepest romantic secrets to the grave, or does history deserve the complete truth once they become cultural icons? Share your opinion in the comments. If you value the untold stories behind Black history, subscribe to Golden Black Legends and join us for the next unforgettable journey.